Hi there, lovers and friends. Permission to be imperfect, please. Permission to not use the right language or say the right things or say some problematic things in this video, because I'm going to be honest with you, race and identity politics is not my area of expertise. It is an area that I'm fascinated by, and it is an area that I've talked about a lot on my channel. And so I wanted to continue the conversation, but with the allowance that I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be proven wrong. And the comment section is there for a reason. You can school me all you want. Just be compassionate in your schooling is all that I'm requesting. This video is in reflection to the TV show Mixed-ish, which if you didn't recognize, that's where the crown is from. It's a headband, but I'll call it a crown. The show premiered yesterday, and Mixed-ish is the third iteration of the Ish family. There was Black-ish, then Grown-ish, now there's Mixed-ish. And Mixed-ish is the unique perspective of what it is like to be a mixed person, specifically what it was like to be a mixed person growing up in a time where interracial marriages were just legalized. And that's the story of Bo in the TV show. And so as somebody who is hella mixed-ish, I was obviously very piqued by the idea of this, and I was obviously very excited to check it out. And when I did watch it, in many ways it didn't disappoint, I can tell. And mind you, you cannot make an assessment of a show based on this 30-minute pilot, but it did obviously, you know, hint at a lot of underlying topics it's going to bring up. But the one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I don't want to say rubbed me the wrong way, I just want to say like gave me cause for pause, is the storyline that I think that we perpetuate a lot when it comes to the mixed experience, which is the mixed person doesn't belong anywhere. You've got, you know, in the case of somebody who is biracial, half black, half white, you have two very established dominant races that are very identifiable and distinct. And then you've got the person in the middle who is a mixture of one of each group member. And the mixed person in the middle, their story usually is depicted as the whites didn't accept them fully and the blacks didn't accept them fully. And so because there is no identifiable or communion of mixed people, that'll probably change the next 10, 20 years. But currently there really isn't any identifiable mixed community. There are no mixed scholarships. There's no mixed activist groups. And if there are, again, maybe I don't know, but because of that, mixed people are sort of this mangrove, just their own individual island with just floating around with no true sense of belonging. And belonging is massively important. You know, identity politics matter. And you can go to any natural habitat and see that birds of a feather do flock together, that we are biologically wired to want to be around people who look like us, because subconsciously we feel safer because we understand those individuals and they remind us of people that love us and treat us with love and respect. So we are drawn to those who look like us. And so if you don't look like anybody, that's where you can end up becoming that mangrove who's got nowhere to go. But when we say that story of mixed people don't belong, we're really slapping in the face, I think, the community of people who have truly embraced those who are mixed with black and have been so gracious and so welcoming and so warm in many ways beyond reason, which is the black community. The black community has carved out such a beautiful door for mixed people to feel welcome, to feel a part of. They've created, to me, just like a beautiful sense of belonging that has made all the difference in my life. And I'm a better person because I have been loved by black people, specifically black women. And I am somebody who is mixed with black, but I can never be a representative. I can never stand in the soapbox and try to tell that story because of the way that I look. I have not experienced the same adversities in that way, and nor have I experienced the same sense of welcoming. But even just the percentage that I do get has literally made all the difference in my life. And I sometimes totally undeserving undeserving of it. So that's just one particular thing about the show that miffed me, and I think that we should be cautious of. So anyhow, I just wanted to share what my experience has been as a mixed person and how my attitude towards race and identity has changed over time as a result. So I grew up in a West Indian family. My dad is Guyanese, and my mom is Dominican and Irish. Now, her Irish side, which is her father, left when she was born. So she had no connection to her white side. But my dad, on the other hand, who is Guyanese and predominantly Indian, He had a massive family. He's got like 8 to 10 brothers and sisters and tons of cousins, and they were all in Toronto. So I grew up really predominantly identifying as Indian, identifying and being around and seeing my family as Indian. And it wasn't until I got to the school age and started identifying and mixing with others that I recognized that unless you were at Christmas with me, you don't see me as one of you as an Indian person. You don't look to me as kin and as community. And that just became very clear to me early on. I am not identifiably Indian in any way. And I shared this on another video. I literally have had one experience in my whole life where somebody has looked at me and been like, oh, where are you from, North or South? And I was like, North or South Toronto? Like, no, like India. And I was like blown away just because I just have never received that kind of community, which is neither here nor there. Again, it goes back to identity politics. So I actually went to an all-white school, not all white on purpose, just it was a suburban school and majority of people were white. I didn't like go to like a white supremacist school. That's how that sounded. So in this white school, I can say I have never felt so ugly, othered, and insignificant probably in my life. So much so that when I got to grade 9, I genuinely acknowledged I was starting over because high school is bigger with more people. And I was like, at this point going forward, there's not a single person from my elementary school that I need to continue a relationship with. I never was anyone's first choice, not to like, not to sleep over, not to partner with. And when I did feel accepted by white people, when I did feel like I was being embraced, it was usually because of my athleticism. I was really good at track, and so that time of year I was usually popular. But other than that, I was never really seen for my gifts. I was never really seen for my greatness. And in high school, I adopted a very mixed ethnicity, but majority Black and Indian, but West Indian in general community. And it was there that I found a sense of belonging, and it was there that I was told I was beautiful. And it was there that I really started to develop my place in the world as a Black woman, as a West Indian woman, as a person of color. So much so to the point that in college, I actually went to a historically Black university for a year. I went to Coppin State University in Baltimore, and I think that's where my relationship with Blackness started to really get damaged. I did not fit in visually at all. I think where in my high school, because it was a mix of Black and brown, and also too, like in Canada, there's a really wide acceptance for racially ambiguous people to still be a part of community, because Guyanese people are like very largely like racially ambiguous and mixed with Black, Portuguese, Indian, and to some extent white. So I've always been understood there. But when I went away to school in Baltimore, the question I got almost daily is, what are you, Black or white? And it was such a confusing question to me because I was like, cool, kind of both. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that I had to choose in that way. And like there was no understanding for how to identify me. I think that when we don't understand something, it's cognitive dissonance, right? It creates an aversion in us. Like if you see something that you don't quite get, you don't know how to put your finger on it, you don't know how to categorize it, it can actually make you uncomfortable. And so I think that I made people uncomfortable, and I got bullied a lot at Coppin State, and I got talked about behind my back a lot, I was disliked a lot, and it didn't help that because I was one of few people who has the quintessential exotic girl looks, like the light eyes and the wavy to curly hair, the 3B, I don't know, the 3B hair. Black men were very, very attracted to me because, again, they've been socialized through music videos to view somebody with my archetype as attractive. And so I got all this positive attention from the men and thus all this negative attention from the women. And both of those extremes just really made me feel very uncomfortable and very othered. And I didn't like it. And so at that point, I feel like I didn't have enough empathy for Black women in particular. I feel like I expected Black women to do all of the work. So instead of me acknowledging that I was someone new, someone different, and maybe there was an education on my part that I had to give, I expected for them just to understand me, just to get me, just to make a space for me. And if I could go back in time, I'd do that differently. I think during college, I was very reclusive. I didn't talk a lot unless you knew me well. I talked to my roommate, I talked to my boyfriend. I had a very, very small group, and I didn't try to challenge people or educate people or create conversations with those who I felt didn't really understand me. I just accepted that they didn't want to talk to me, and so I didn't talk to them. And like I didn't create a solution, and I definitely, if anything, made the problem bigger, but mostly for myself. And through that experience, I feel like if I've talked about my mixed ethnicity or, my position in Blackness, it's always been with that slant of, well, it's been hard for me too. I've also been discriminated against. I've also experienced marginalization. I've also felt like the way that I look determines how people treat me, but mostly through the Black experience versus through the rest of the world. And God damn it, how insensitive. You know what I mean? Like, I think comparative pain is so immature. I think comparative pain is so regressive and just doesn't actually speak to what's actually happening. Because the truth of the matter is, the reason why that Black people had the most opinions about me is because Black people are the only ones who cared, who gave a fuck. Who were, again, acknowledging and thinking of me at all. And instead of looking at it from that lens, I chose to see it from the negative one. And as I got older, and race becomes less important, I think, the older that you get. That could be a very privileged statement to make. But in my experience, my race has become less important as time has gone on. Like I said, there was a time in my life where it wasn't like, hey, how are you? Where do you go to school? It was like, hey, what's your name? Are you Black or white? So race was like at the forefront of every single interaction that I had, and identity and asking to identify myself was always the first question. As you get older, and especially in LA, the question is more, what do you do? Where do you live? Where are you from? So now I think that the pressure has come off in that area. I'm able to look at it from a bird's eye view. I can take that weight off and then elevate myself and really look over the whole entire picture and see how I was the cause of a lot of the problems, and to see how my racial insensitivity caused me to blame rather than embrace. And again, like I said at the top of this video, I just think that when I look at it as a whole, Black women in particular have just gone out of their way to embrace me and to try to understand me. And I think at this point in my life, that's something that I am interested in learning how to give back, that I am interested in learning how to reciprocate. Not to say that other groups haven't embraced and given me space, but there's just a difference. I'll give a loose example. Like the two big Hollywood jobs that I've gotten before, one for MTV and one for Facebook. In both cases, when I got the script, like their first rough draft of like what the show breakdown was, both times it wasn't my name on the sheet, it was another white expert's name. And not that that's probably an oversight on their part, but that's just to let me know I wasn't their first pick. That another white expert said no first, and as a result, they were like, oh, it'd be good actually if we got that person of color, because they're also good. Hey, this person doesn't want to do this job, it's got enough money, she'll probably do it, and it's good, it looks good for us, or whatever their reasoning was. Maybe I'm just their second pick or just second best in general, I'm not sure. But it's just those moments like that just let you know that you're not their first pick. And when my book came out, there was a very large conversation as to whether or not I should be on the cover, because the idea is my book, The Game of Desire, is not a book that is about or is for any particular race. And if you've read it, know that there is an Asian person, there is a Latino person, there are 3 Black women, and then there is a white queer woman. And so making sure, because again, I understand how important identity politics are, making sure that there was representation so you can open the book and hear from somebody who looks like you was important to me. So my book to me is not, I hate to use the word colorless because there's no such thing as that, but I tried to make it as universally appealing as possible. And so the conversation around whether I should be on the cover or not was really like, well, do we want to make this like an urban book, right? Because even just presenting my face in general signifies to a certain population that I'm not for them. I think that is a lot with, I mean, power to you. I mean, power to people in a position of privilege where you're so accustomed to being able to identify precisely with somebody, like not just skin color, but hair texture and hair color and eye color, because you have so many different options. Like your identification gets to be so much more nuanced. And so as a result of that, you tend to throw away people who like don't fit your archetype at all. And so when you see a person of color on a book, it signifies to a certain portion of the population that this book is not for them, when in truth it is. And so ultimately we decided not to put me on the cover. But all that to be said, guess who showed up for me? Guess who was there? Guess who supported? Guess who showed out? Black women. That is who said yes. That is who embraced me. That is who said, like, this is our champion, this is our expert, and this is our first pick. And furthermore, I think through this entire experience of this book, I've just become so grateful and wrapped up in the love of people in general, but really specifically Black women, like Bossy Ikpi, who is a writer who I should have her book. I don't have it on me right now. And if I pronounced your name wrong, I'm very, very sorry. But she has a book called I'm Lying, But I'm Telling the Truth. It was a New York Times best-selling book, which less than probably 0.2% of books get to have that title in front of it. A massive breakout success, huge critical acclaim, and I've never met this person before in my life, and I don't know why, like we were just able to connect and create community. I saw her book at the airport and I was like, this is the thing too, null and void of the fact that our books don't have anything to do with each other. If you go on Amazon, her book is related next to mine, as well as Elaine Welteroth, which I hope that's how you pronounce your name, but Elaine Welteroth's book, You're More Than Enough. And once again, we're not in the same category or vertical, but just because we are women of color, we are suggested related because Black women are just buying books to support Black women. So I saw Bassy's book at an airport, and it is my dream to one day be in an airport in the bookstore, because like 10 books get included at airport bookstores. So if you're there, you really, really made it. So I saw Bassy's book there, and it was just a moment to say, good for her. Like, I'm really happy that a Black woman in such a short span of time, because her book actually came out after mine by like maybe even a month or two, was able to accomplish this feat. And so I put it on my story, and she immediately reached out and she said, I'm also going to buy your book. And then since then has just gone above and beyond to try to find ways to partner with me, to plug me in, to assist me. And the statement that she made is Black writers have to stick together. You know, Black women writers and creators have to stick together because it's very different for us. And I honestly cried in that, just reading that, you know? I think again, as a mixed person, you're very accustomed to sort of feeling a little alone, a little othered. And so those moments where somebody like claims you as one, it is invaluable for all the stupid reasons that I probably should be more evolved then, but it was just like a really nice and kind gesture. So that to say, that has been my experience as a mixed Black person. I'm still navigating this space of how do I be as proud and as contributive as I can to Black women in particular, while not taking up their space or their opportunities to tell their story from their vantage point, which the world needs more than anything else. And so that's it. That is what this whole thing was about. Mixed-ish, looking forward to watching the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that conversation evolves. And yeah, in the comment section below, I would love to hear from you. I don't know what on, because I've covered a couple of different things in this video, but if you are a mixed person, you know, where have you felt the most at home? Who has opened their arms to you the widest? And have you been paying attention? Maybe you don't care about that stuff at all. And so yeah, that's the conversation I want to go to. If you're not a mixed person and you want to give some advice and you want to give some pointers for how you would like to see people who are mixed with your identity best represent you, let's do that too.